Dr. Pat Fossarelli, the Associate Dean at the Ecumenical Institute of Theology, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Mike Gorman, the Dean of the Ecumenical Institute of Theology.
The term ecumenical itself can mean a lot of different things to different people. Within the Christian tradition, ecumenical means the broad range of Christian traditions, families, churches, denominations, and so forth. Ecumenical also to some people means interfaith, that is, interreligious. I think that there were lots of good things from the very beginning of the ecumenical movement 100 years ago that combined church unity or Christian unity and Christian mission. And I think that devolved in the middle of the 20th century into too much concern about structure. And that didn't work. What is coming back now is what's called in Catholic documents spiritual ecumenism. People working together, praying together, sharing causes together, studying together. And I think that, which we're part of here at the Ecumenical Institute of Theology, I think that holds lots of promise for the future in sort of looking at some of these issues in new ways. The Christian church, the biggest change that's happened since I've been here is the fact that the so-called mainline denominations have shrunk, as we all know, over the last almost 50 years, but especially the last 20 or 30 years, with a great rise in non-denominational churches, so-called mega-churches, and all of those have become part of the Ecumenical Institute. I think some people were surprised about that at first, but it's true. That's, in some ways, that's the shape of the Christian church in the United States, and so all of those components are part of the Ecumenical Institute. I guess my background is kind of ecumenical mixed, and I've always been sensitive to diverse points of view, especially within the Christian family. But it really wasn't until I got here that I thought seriously about theological education as an ecumenical enterprise, even though I had been in places where there were other traditions other than my own represented. I went to a Presbyterian seminary with Mennonites and Catholics and Baptists and all of that. The biggest surprise to me was how diverse the Christian family is, even though I knew that intellectually, experientially, to see that here. And how important it is, I think, for people within the broad spectrum of Christian faith, from conservative to liberal, from extreme Catholic to extreme Protestant and Orthodox and everything in between. I think it's very important for them to understand one another, to see what we have in common, and to be able to acknowledge and appreciate and tolerate and even welcome our differences. There's hundreds of denominations in the United States, for good or for ill. To see reactions to what some have perceived to be the failure of mainline denominations, and at the same time to see new expressions of Christian faith for more positive reasons, in other words, to extend what's already good and what's already helpful within Christian churches. I think both of those dynamics are working. There's some perception that mainline churches in some respects have failed and have not faithfully and fully embodied the Christian gospel. And also just new developments. There's a natural, an organism that grows is naturally going to expand and perhaps change. What we hear from students is they come to the Ecumenical Institute and they leave more, let's say they come in as Catholics, they leave more appreciative of Baptists and Lutherans and Mennonites and Episcopalians, but they also become stronger in their own faith and their own commitments, their own tradition. And that happens to Baptists and Presbyterians and Lutherans as well. So I think it has just the opposite effect. It can, when done healthily, it can strengthen us on our own positions, but also help us to hold them a little bit more humbly. But when you explore a scripture text or a theological topic with this diversity of opinion in mutual respect, I think we all learn from one another, and we gain an understanding, a perception, an insight that we wouldn't gain if we all agreed about a particular topic. So sometimes it can be, I won't say divisive, but I will say sometimes it can be interesting. What's really been rewarding, I think, about the 18 or so years that I've been the dean here is the fact that we have alums and students in so many different places where they're contributing to the spiritual and other welfare of those particular churches, parishes, communities, and in some cases they're working together. So I think the influence, the impact that we have had because of our students and because of our faculty, is probably the thing I'm most pleased about. I don't know if pride or proud is the right word, but I'm certainly very pleased about that. One of the things that by definition a dean is a leader. And I suppose that this award, for which I'm very grateful, is acknowledging the fact that for 18 years one person has been leading the Ecumenical Institute, and in that sense responsible for the theological education of hundreds and hundreds of different people. And I take that, I have taken that responsibility very seriously, and hopefully with the support of staff and faculty, done a good job at that. What I think is really critical is, as I said when I took this job, churches are going to have leaders whether they want them or not. The only question is whether we have good leaders.